It was August the 25th, 1991, when Vera Anderson's lifeless body was discovered lying across the driver's seat of her car in a works yard near Warrington. Her brutal murder had all the hallmarks of a hitman. Her throat had been cut and a piece of her hair had been ripped from her scalp. Detectives believe as proof that the job had been done. It was obvious from the start how Vera had been killed, but what remains a mystery is why her life was taken. It's a case which some of Cheshire Police's most experienced investigators have dedicated 3 decades to trying to solve, and they don't intend to give up.
The north of England has been the scene for some of the UK's most notorious murders. In the 1960s, Ian Brady and Myra Hindley kidnapped and killed 5 children before burying their bodies on Standerworth Moor. A decade later, Peter Sutcliffe, known as the Yorkshire Ripper, took the lives of at least 13 women and attempted to murder 7 more. There was also Harold Shipman, the doctor who killed more than 200 patients across Greater Manchester in the 70s, 80s and 90s. And more recently, the sadistic murder of 16-year-old transgender girl Brianna Jai by teenagers Scarlett Jenkinson and Eddie Ratcliffe. In each of these cases, those responsible were eventually brought to justice, but this doesn't always happen. Some can take years or decades to crack, others are never solved at all. It may be 30 years since Vera Anderson was killed, but the detectives currently investigating the murder say the case is far from closed.
With any unsolved murder, we will never rest. We will always follow up lines of inquiry, regardless of how long ago that murder occurred. The longer it is as time goes on, the harder it is to do those inquiries. But we are, as a constabulary, in particular with this investigation, we will never rest until we get closure for Vera's family, and we will keep on trying to provide justice for them.
I've been a reporter for 42 years, and during that time I've covered countless murders, including that of Vera Anderson. It's a case which has haunted both retired and current Cheshire Police officers, and it's remained with me as well. Vera was a 42-year-old mother of 2 who lived at Widnes near the M62. At 10 p.m. on August the 24th, 1991, she received a phone call at home. No one knows who made the phone call, but it was enough to make Vera get her 7-year-old son out of bed and take him next door to be looked after by a neighbour. The meeting was clearly one that she didn't feel comfortable in taking her young child to. She told her neighbour that she needed to go and collect something for her brother and wouldn't be long. But that was a lie. Why did she lie?
We know that Vera left in her Ford Cortina, and we know that she also emptied the boot of her car just prior to leaving. She took out a toolbox and other items such as a pushchair and effectively drove off in an empty car, which would suggest that she was going to go and meet someone and pick something up.
Vera's body was discovered at around 3:15 a.m. by a police officer, but they estimate that she was actually killed at some point between 10:45 and 11:15 p.m.
Don't really have any confirmed sightings of Vera until, unfortunately, she was found deceased in a vehicle just around the 3 a.m. in the morning, the following morning. We've no real understanding of where she's been throughout that time, so you're talking a period of around 5 hours. We've not got any confirmed sightings.
Police established at an early stage of the investigation that the attack was neither sexual nor a robbery. It took place on Tannery Lane in Penketh, which is an area located between Widnes and Warrington.
Potentially an hour or so after that she'd left her home address, there was a vehicle with its lights on in the location that ultimately Vera's vehicle was found in some hours later. We can't say definitively that was Vera's vehicle, but it does seem coincidental that it's parked in exactly the same spot, and we know that Vera's vehicle battery was flat. So we are hypothesising that perhaps potentially that Vera's car was there from around 11 p.m. or 11:15 onwards.
Former Detective Sergeant Gary Massey, you've been involved in this case for several years now. Can you explain your part in investigating this case?
Yeah, I'm a former Detective Sergeant on the Major Investigations team in Cheshire Police, and as a result of a number of pieces of intelligence in 2013, myself and a number of colleagues were involved in reviewing the Vera Anderson murder.
And where we are now, can you explain exactly the significance of this location to the case?
This road is called Tannery Lane, and These houses to my left here is a new estate. Before them there was an enormous tannery here, which was partially demolished. And almost where we are stood, leading through the housing estate, was a small service road. And it was the top of the service road where the victim, Vera Anderson's car, was found with her lifeless body in it.
At that time, it was under demolition. It was partially demolished, and what's there now is a modern housing estate. There were lots of disused units, but there were also some other smaller businesses that have moved in to make use of those sort of large storage type premises. So there wasn't a lot there. There were a few businesses that wouldn't have been open at the time. It would have been very dark, quite secluded, and it's left us puzzled as to why Vera would have gone to that location willingly to meet someone. It would suggest that it was someone that she trusted, that she was probably trying to help out in some way. I'm of the opinion that the person that made the phone call is either the person that she met or it's someone that was arranging that meeting.
The killer had cut Vera's throat after probably rendering her unconscious with a sash cord pulled tight around her neck. Inside the car, police also recovered a cartridge from a blank firing handgun. Detectives believe a pistol may have been discharged to frighten Vera and stop her from trying to flee her vehicle.
Vera sustained a devastating injury to her neck caused by some form of sharp object. That would have in itself proved fatal. But also, when Vera was discovered at the scene, there was a length of what I would describe as sash cord, so a white kind of cotton-based cord that you would have used in old-fashioned sash windows. That was found in situ on Vera's neck. The pathologist concluded would have been used to asphyxiate or garrote Vera. I would describe that as massive overkill. You know, there's two fatal means there being used, and it's quite clear that was a planned and really brutal attack.
To try and establish a motive for Vera's death, police have dug deeply into her past. All of her previous partners have been interviewed. Vera was twice divorced, and she was also separated from the father of her 7-year-old boy. At the time, she was going out with a trucker, of whom she was extremely fond, as he intended to move into her home. She was quite an independent woman, and she did all the jobs that needed doing in her own house. She also ran her own business, selling sandwiches to local offices and companies, and it was doing well. She wasn't in debt to anybody.
So over the years, through friends and family and through witnesses that we've had cause to speak to, a consistent picture of Vera has been brought to our attention. As I said before, she's a family lady, doted on her children, worked hard, very popular, very present in the community. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that no one had a bad word to say about her, and been described as a salt of the earth, very friendly, always got time for her family and her neighbours. And that's what makes this murder all the more senseless, because she's the most unlikely murder victim that you could imagine.
The murder investigation has been a long and complex one, and in the immediate aftermath of Vera's death, a colossal amount of resources were directed towards potential evidence from a local pub. There was believed to have been a sighting of a woman who resembled Vera at the Crown and Cushion pub in Penketh, which was close to where she lived. It was reported that a woman resembling Vera was seen at the pub sometime between 10 and 10:45 in the company of an unknown man. But that line of inquiry is now considered to be potentially a red herring.
What I have to say, and it's really important to stress this, is that sighting of that female and that male in the Crown and Cushion has never been confirmed to be Vera. I can't rule out that Vera wasn't in the Crown and Cushion pub earlier on that evening, but information from her closest friends and family casts a little bit of doubt on that sighting as being Vera. The clothing that she went out in, and it was quite clear that she went out in a bit of a hurry, from people that know Vera best, they thought it unlikely that she would have gone to a pub dressed in the manner that she was dressed, somewhat casually. Vera was a person that took meticulous care of her appearance. She always looked smart when she went out, and the clothing that she went out in after leaving her son with a neighbour is not the sort of clothing she'd have gone to a pub in. In addition, the drink that female in the Crown and Cushion was served by the bar staff was not a drink that Vera Anderson would have drunk. Wasn't her favourite tipple, if you like. Wasn't a drink that they would have ever imagined her drinking. So whilst I can't say conclusively that wasn't Vera, there are some bits around that perhaps cast a little bit of doubt upon it being Vera, and what I wouldn't want is for people to conclusively assume that Vera Anderson was in the Crown of Cushion. That could be what I would describe as a red herring.
Over the last 30 years, as well as the colossal manpower, Cheshire Police have spent over £100,000 reviewing potential forensic evidence. They have done numerous appeals for information, including on the 30th anniversary in 2021 and more recently in 2024 when new clues were revealed. As a result, detectives have received hundreds of tips relating to the case, but none have led to a conviction. One definite lead, and one that remains an open line of inquiry till this day, is a near-miss crash that happened on the night of Vera's murder on Tannery Lane, near to where she was killed.
Now, on August the 24th, 1991, at approximately 11:15, an incident occurred on this road where we now stood, which is hugely significant potentially to the inquiry. Can you explain, Gary, what that was?
Yes, around about 11:15 that evening, a member of the public was driving along Tannery Lane, and as they got to approximately this location, a car emerged from the service road that I previously described to you and cut across a path, almost colliding with her. And the car was described as possibly brown in colour and may have been a hatchback type car, something like a Vauxhall Astra. Now, the significance of that is we think Vera may well have attended at the scene between about quarter to 11 that evening and 11 o'clock. So this car emerging from the service road at 11:15 is quite significant.
So the potential is that Vera's killer may have been in that car?
Quite possibly, yes.
This case, more than any, strikes a chord with officers that are still in the organisation and some that have long retired, including former senior investigating officers that were involved in the case. And I think there's a couple of factors in that. The brutality of this murder is a rarity in this country, and particularly in Cheshire. The level of injuries that Vera unfortunately sustained left the investigation team at the time, I suspect, reeling. But also, I think the circumstances of it and Vera as a person, all murders are needless and senseless, but this one in particular, genuinely have been left scratching our heads as to wonder why Vera was the target of this murder. She had no axe to grind with anyone. She was a family woman who doted on her children. Through all our inquiries and the inquiries back in the day in the original investigation, we've unearthed nothing that would lead us to conclude why Vera would have been the victim in this case.
As part of the most recent appeal, I interviewed Vera's daughter, Lorraine. She's now 51 and has 4 children of her own. She told me that at the end of each summer, as the nights draw in, the memories come back, as her mother's life was taken at the end of August on a bank holiday weekend. I've been covering this case myself now for nearly 5 years, and I do believe that the police are tantalisingly close to making a breakthrough. Lorraine has not given up hope of getting justice. She told me, "I think of her every day. My mum never saw 6 of her 7 grandchildren. My brother was only 7 when he lost his mum, and it hit him hard." I would say to anyone who knows who did it to speak to the police. He has got away with this for so long.